Yo, what's going on, everybody? Aaron here.
Raider Pete.
And welcome back to PanNerdia, and welcome back to our review of HBO's WATCHMEN. We're reviewing Episode 5, Little Fear of Lightning. And man, was that a lot to unpack.
Yeah, there was. Shall we unpack the past of Wade?
Yes, Wade.
Looking Glass himself.
I was like, I got looking glass in my teeth with these lights.
Everything's revealed of his past that is his current trauma.
Yes. And so we get a little shot of 1985 Wade, younger Wade, as he's entering Hoboken, New Jersey on a Jehovah's Witness missionary kind of thing off a bus straight out from Tulsa. And he's there to spread the word of God, and ends up, stumbling across a real rough, scruff group of young people, and tries to get his message across. Real quick though, what does the head brother of the Jehovah's Witness say to Wade and gang before they head out amongst the Hoboken, New Jersey?
Oh, so they're getting out of the school bus and they all gather for a prayer, and well, basically, the first thing out of his mouth is, we're entering the whore's den on the brink of extinction.
And this is just before midnight on the doomsday clock. Everybody's thinking that they're about to get nuked. Could be the end of the world. And you guys, if you're familiar, know what happened in 1985 New York. So back to Wade. He's
Hoboken.
In Hoboken.
It's just right across
yeah.
the river there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's pretty close
in
there.
Jersey.
He gets up tangled with one of these chicks from the bad group, the gang of hoodlums, if you want to call them that, whatever. They're just people living before the apocalypse starts. And she takes him into this fun house, mirror room, essentially. Might be leading to something, right? Some trauma. Mm-hmm. And so she gets ready to basically suck him off, but pretty much takes all his clothes off for this. And mind you, she has taken off one thing.
As we're watching, we're like, and nothing's coming off of her. This is not good.
Right. So of course he ends up getting bamboozled, and
she's like, later, Bible boy.
Right when she gets him, half masked, she fucking takes off with his clothes, leaves him in this fun house. But literally, not even seconds later,
the clock must have struck midnight.
Something happened.
Whatever.
Well, giant roar and noise, and then fucking high pitched, this vibrating, blood curdling noise happens, and Wade survives. But as he walks out of the broken funhouse, he notices hundreds of people just in a bloody puddle of themselves on the ground, and he doesn't know what the hell happened.
And neither the other sprinkling of few that have survived. But the one thing that remains, everyone's bleeding out of their nose, eyes, ears. But Wade, maybe because he was in the House of Mirrors, and maybe because he covered his ears up for a moment,
he survived,
for the perfect part of the moment.
So did a few other people, and we haven't figured it out quite yet. But it's all because of the psychic blast from the interdimensional squid. And we actually get to finally see a live-action version of the squid. I was hoping we would. And granted, it's not in action, because I guess the way we think about it is, you got to remember, too, it did have a big brain. You remember the shot from the comic.
It's like a big brain with an eye.
Yeah.
It's very much reminiscent of, maybe you guys remember the big brain from Starship Troopers.
Oh, right.
It had the big eye, and it just sucked on other people's brains. But this thing, once it hit pavement, it was already starting to die. But the psychic blast that came with the plopping is what did everyone in. So apparently the closer you were to this thing, the more combustible your body was.
Right.
Like you just completely you turned into freaking jelly. Because jam doesn't jiggle like that. Oh,
right.
That's sick.
But the thing was so big. I mean, the fact that its tentacles reached all the way across town. So it was pretty gnarly, man.
Not only that, but across town, this tentacle right over here that stretches way, way back.
Oh yeah.
It's on top of Madison Square Garden,
where Pale Horse was playing. Oh. And we'll get into that later. Little Easter eggs all around. But so then we kind of kind of come back into present Wade as he's thinking about this incident, because he's in the middle of a kind of like a product review session. I guess it must be like a side job he does, because he can detect. He's like a lie detector, basically.
Yes.
The looking glass, that is. And perhaps all that trauma he faced back in Hoboken is the reason he's named the Looking Glass and why he took on that persona. That, and we learned that he wears that, I forget what it's called, the shiny reflective stuff.
Reflective headgear for one purpose.
Yeah, to keep the psychic blast from his head, and also he's got it in the lining of his hat too. But we're seeing him, kind of seeing his other day job, I guess, and then he goes and switches his car at a freaking storage unit facility to get his cop car and his looking glass mask, and heads out to the precinct. And as he's heading there, Lori, they kind of show this thing where instance where Lori's up in that same podium Judd was at the first episode, with everybody gathered, all the police and other masked vigilantes, about telling them about what they're doing and they need to go look for this church that they were speaking at.
There's only like 4,000 whatever churches, so start looking at all of them, match them up with this picture, try to see.
And she's pretty she's pretty straightforward. She's like, I don't
know about you, but I was thinking, that's going to be underground, like, you know what I mean? Like,
I have no idea, right? I mean, they could have been anywhere with that, and as we see later, it literally could be anywhere because it's a fucking set. Mm-hmm. It's not a real church, but we'll get back to that.
Let's just put it this way: in this alternate time of the current time, there are still malls that are like ghost towns.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, let's go.
So we're back at the precinct.
Yeah.
We get Sister Knight come in, and she's asking about the pills, seeing if the Looking Glass's ex took care of it, and he's like, nah, not yet, kind of thing, but. There's a little cactus on the table, maybe intercepting some things. But, again, we don't necessarily know that yet. But before we know it, Lori pops out of her office and is like, hey, mirror guy, come here. And she kind of starts asking him some questions about things, mainly about the pills, because, well, she's got his desk bugged. And she was, she's like, it's an FBI thing. FBI's bug shit. Was her whole explanation.
And the other reason why he was in the room was simply, if you want mirror guy, you can have the name.
Yeah, right.
Just to get under his skin.
And he's just like, I know it's Looking Glass, but either way, the pills, it's for her, it's confidential, I'm not, it's nothing, don't worry about it, kind of thing. And we kind of get more about a day in the life of Looking Glass as we go back to his house, and we got the little, like you said, can of beans. We got a little beans Easter egg, the Rorschach, which we've mentioned that he kind of is almost more essence of Rorschach than the 7th Cavalry is. They're kind of like a false representation where Looking Glass is more Rorschach than anybody, in this whole series. But, obviously he's got his own set of trauma.
But this current day Wade, though, reveals that how extremely traumatized he remained over all those years. I mean, before and after his marriage, the alarm bunker, along with the variety of reflective headgear, that spoke volumes. I mean, obviously, he thought it was going to happen again at any moment.
Yeah, they literally have companies that are like interdimensional security systems that are all hooked up specifically for the squid attacks. And
another way to make money. It's like people online selling bug out bags and stuff.
I mean, we get such a weird look in his life to the point where while he's eating those beans, he's watching weird vigilante Minutemen porn.
Was that? I mean, maybe pornography was okay. I mean, in this alternate dimension, is it okay? Maybe it was part of that whole movie series. Yeah, that show.
I know, but that'd be weird if that was in the show. And then maybe it was just something they do on television.
Like
and
maybe
they're more radical.
Maybe it was just acceptable or something. It was a whole different.
I didn't think about that. I thought he was just into like watching superhero porn.
But his eyes were like.
It was the Hood of Justice banging somebody. I forget who it was, but
he was having his beans, and he was just like,
I know, he was like astounded, like he couldn't believe it, like it was some like drama series. He was like, "Oh, it's happening." Yeah, I know.
So it makes you wonder, like he didn't necessarily like type in like I want to see this. Maybe it was just that show.
Yeah, who knows? And he wasn't a computer. There's no internet, so it had to be that show. So he's not unless he had a DVD. He was watching like a fucking,
Unless there's a family video down the street.
What bizarre, but we were both like, oh, all right.
I forgot about that. A lot of technology is banned. Apparently, even tobacco is a banned
tobacco,
substance.
Yeah, we'll learn that a little bit later too. That was weird.
Controlled substance.
Right, yeah, I don't partake. So we get more. This is definitely a Looking Glass episode, by the way. If you guys haven't figured it out, it's pretty sweet. We get him going to the to see his ex. She works at an animal cloning facility, which is interesting.
Where there are cloned people there too, or is it just so happens there's twins that run the front desk?
Oh, I didn't even notice that. There were twins? Well, there you go.
Yeah, those two dudes. Remember when it was to check in?
I can't remember. Well, there you go.
I thought that's why you were like, click that one. Oh, never mind.
No, I did it because the screens in the back.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it was two dudes there.
Yep.
Well, there you go. Well, she's cloning puppies in the back. Wade says one doesn't really look that good, so she throws it in some kind of, flaming trash can, which is sad.
Yeah.
But
instant
anyway.
incineration. I mean,
even
watching the show with subtitles, it says like flames hissing.
Yeah.
It's like, just so you know, yes, the dog is now dust.
It's some Westworld shit, put it that way.
Just a little shocker for the audience, I guess.
Yeah, right. Who
Throw
knows?
that in.
Anyway, he gets the pills from her, finds out that they're a banned drug
called nostalgia.
A schedule class. Did they say schedule 1 or something? Nostalgia. It's called nostalgia.
Nostalgia, which is
apparently it's memories. Your memories. They're supposed to be for you. You're not supposed to take anybody else's memories, and we'll get into that later too. But so pretty crazy. Either way, we go back in the day in the life of Wade here as he runs a kind of a support group for those who have like squid PTSD, essentially those who've experienced trauma via the psychic squid blasts.
These are all people that were in the blast zone or had relatives that were in the blast zone. Like with one guy, he wasn't even born until afterwards, but his mom's trauma led him to have trauma.
Yeah, so it's like that.
But he's saying because it was a psychic blast, he's inherited the psychic, trauma.
I know there are other dimensions, but this is a dimension where I live.
Yeah.
They have some weird chant to say. But
that's the parting words, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of creepy. But as we're sitting there, I forget her name, but a new member or a new person joins the crowd and of the group, the support circle, and listens to Wade's wise words. And afterwards, they kind of shoot shit, and he's kind of wondering like,
who is this blonde lady?
Yeah, who is
she?
But
I think she already put the word in because when she walked in the door, he's like, "Oh, are you friends with Simo or whatever like that?" She goes, "Yep, I'm the one."
Okay, well there you go.
So I mean, everything as we'll talk about is set up.
Yeah, everything's starting to be set up. So they do the meeting. He kind of bullshits with her in the parking lot. They end up going and get a drink together. That's when she kind of confirms.
She definitely
for herself.
makes it seem like, come follow me. Like,
right.
She's hot to trot. But
yeah, exactly.
They go and have some beers and they do the guessing game and she's like, I'm a waitress. She goes, no, you're not. Try again. She's like,
he's like, I can tell if you're lying or not.
And then finally she says radiologist. She goes, yep, that's what you are.
Right.
He is Looking Glass after all.
Yeah. So and I think she was almost after now what we know. I think she was just trying to test to make sure he was what he.
I think she was laughing in her amazement, but you don't realize that.
Yes.
Until you watch the second time.
So they end up getting drunk together, but she ends up heading out and gets picked up by a friend. And as Wade sees them leaving, a lettuce head drops out of the back of the pickup truck that's terribly tarped.
Snap.
I mean, it was like the guy just fucking threw it on top. I don't even know how it wasn't blown off in the wind.
A direct match of the cavalry vehicle that got away in the investigation. He
calls it in and everything, and he ends up chasing them and end up to this abandoned mall, essentially, warehouse mall thing, and notices when the dude and her get out of the truck, they put on the Rorschach mask and they head on in. He's like, mother effer. So this is where it starts getting dense as shit. I mean, the whole episode was already
Little
dense.
dense, little dicey, little in-your-face reveals. They all begin here.
So he ends up, coming into this facility, ends up finding that this was the facility where they, filmed the chapel scene at. And it was, again, it's a set. They essentially built a set.
Yeah. So he's wondering, like, if this is not a 7th Cavalry type of setting, like it's not in a barn, it's not underground, it's not some, in the middle of the forest, nowhere chapel. It's in this shut down section of the mall, perhaps a Sears.
Was it a mall?
It looked like the back of a mall because there was...
Oh, the way they entered it, yeah, it was like a big dumpster.
I think he even said when he gave the fake dispatch, as you'll find out soon, directions, he said the mall off of 8, A6 or whatever the route was.
Go. So that's what essentially, and it's perfect for that, And as he's there and he's finding all this out, something very odd happens. A basketball teleports right before his eyes.
Just right through the scene.
Just bounce, and it's like a blue portal, and it just drops in, ting, 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 and he's just like, what the hell? And it keeps kind of happening, but in different areas in this big open space of the Sears.
And he starts to hear people walking around that aren't paying attention to anything but writing down the numbers of like how many feet away the ball is about to go. And they were saying like, south, this, that, whatever coordinates. And
he comes across a group of 7th Cavalry sitting around a, what is it called again?
CX924 teleport board window.
Yeah, it's crazy that they're sitting there with essentially a teleportation window, throwing this basketball through, and he sees, of course, the chick that he was with all night, and she's like, reveals to him, yeah, we set it up even from the radio call to the lettuce dropping out, like, we got you, but obviously they needed him for something.
And she was speaking so softly to him, and everyone was like, didn't have their guard up or down. They were just standing there staring.
And by the way, he brought a gun in that he found in the truck of the culprits.
Of the lettuce vehicle, yeah.
And even that was set up because it had blanks, and he even was getting ready to shoot one of the bigger dudes, and it just was...
How does he not have a piece on him all the time, being a cop and being,
who knows,
what?
Right? I think because he doesn't... He's definitely. Remember, we saw earlier in the season.
Maybe because
he's not
was
like
doing his support group thing. And
that. I think that's a big part. And he's not the violent one out of the group. Remember, he didn't fight when they were doing all those fights. In Nixonville or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He was just watching. He's like, you're not gonna partake, and so yeah, it was interesting. But
this CX924, it was mentioned it's the same kind that was used in the city square in the past, but. When in the past and which city square? So
it was in New York. Yeah,
it was in New York.
Yeah, 1985. Yeah, it was.
So that's what was actually used by Ozymandias is a large version of this thing.
Yeah, basically, there was one of those there.
I wasn't sure if Wade was talking about they were experimenting with it in the 90s, and now it's like in modern day 2000 teens.
It could have been something along those lines too. I might have something mixed up, but I think it was something used. But the thing is, nobody knows that was used for the squid to come through. They, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But either way, they ended up, telling him like, oh, there's something you need to know. We brought you here for a reason. And they ended up, grabbing him and throwing him in this room that has a bunch of these TVs. With one of the Rorschach guys, 7th Cavalry guy sits down next to him, starts talking to him like he knows him. And Looking Glass calls his bullshit real quick and exposes the senator.
Yeah, he's like, Senator, you don't have to try to alter your voice. And Senator takes off his mask. It's like, oh, I just do this for appearances for them.
Right.
And then,
And then he's like, actually, I'm not even really part of these guys. But he goes, I'm coming down here because I'm the senator. He's the senator of Tulsa. He's coming down here to essentially keep these, he calls them idiots, in check. And he goes, that's what Judd was doing too. Now, Judd might have naturally a darker past connected to the Ku Klux Klan. I don't know if the senator necessarily does, but for one thing's for certain, what the senator knows and what these 7th Cavalry people, assumingly, who have got a hold of Rorschach's journal or something. Remember how Watchmen ended with the journalist getting that? They both know the secrets of what really happened that day, 1985, that night, who really caused it, and that it really was a hoax, because us as the readers know what it was, but everybody else thinks it was literally an interdimensional blast. Well, Klein essentially says, like, yeah, I'm basically keeping these guys in check to make sure they don't F it up, but we're basically have the same goal. And, essentially Angela Abar is really getting in the way right now. Because this is where I think what she's got going on with her grandfather and what her grandfather and Mrs. True have going on is different from what the 7th Cavalry, their plan is.
That's exactly what my thought is. My thought, basically, before the video reveal to Wade, the senator's unsure, possibly unaware of Lady True's plans. I do agree. I think they're separate plans, and he sees Angela is definitely kind of a roadblock, but that's all he sees her as. He doesn't know. I don't think the senator knows about, like, Will and all that, like Old Man Will and all that.
Yeah, I think it's more so he thinks she's a roadblock because he knows that she was a cop, part of the White Knight.
I mean, he does bring up that Blake has her suspicions of her,
right?
But he doesn't see her. He just sees her as a threat. She's interrupting in the progress of his master plan.
Exactly.
And so he's like, you gotta get her shut down somehow, otherwise I'll just kill her whole family.
Yeah, which is ate up.
Which one do you want, Wade?
Right. So yeah, it's pretty wild. And he's like, so I gotta let you know something. There was something that was told to me when I became senator. And he's basically, I guess what he's practically saying is, now I'm going to show to you, Wade. And there's a reason, though, why do they pick Wade, though, right? Is it because they want his truth, his lie detector ability, almost, essentially? Do they want...
I don't know.
They're showing him this reason.
I'm so cross. Is it two evils, or is there one good? Like the senator and his group with the teleport machine. Right. Or Lady True and all of her science that she owns now. Mm-hmm. Like, who's the master bad, or
because
are they
the thing
both
is,
bad?
If they're really trying to be in the essence of Rorschach and what he had going on, is to expose the truth so everybody really knows what's going on. But if Lady True is really supporting everything that Adrian Veidt, aka Ozymandias, did in the past, and she must really know the truth as well, because she probably knows the truth, and if she's took over his company, that is she wanting to uphold his secrecy or expose it herself? She
might be the one in charge of that satellite that we'll talk about later that's keeping an eye on someone.
Yeah, so we really don't know who's on whose side, what's going on, but all we do know is a lot of people know about what really happened, including the senator, and he shows the looking glass, and it was a video that, Ozymandias himself recorded in 1985 in front of the giant squid.
To specifically the future president in 7 years ahead of time.
7 years.
Yeah, he goes, I'm talking to you 7 years before your election, and I helped you get there, and I helped the
inauguration in 92.
Cold War come to a climax, and then I also helped that I stopped that from happening. And yes,
and he told him the whole thing, and then assumed it's a pretty
all the great hoax.
He told him another 2 hours full of details, and probably showed him what the squid looked like. So there you go. I mean, he basically saw him, and then Looking Glass is like, "What's real? What the fuck?" And
he basically used Ozymandias admits to Robert Redford that he used fear, and the thing is that he killed more than half a city.
Yeah, 3 million people, but he saved the world. So weird. It's a weird duality there. So we got another great transition to Ozymandias in present day. Well, we don't really know, but older Ozymandias in his La La Land as he's suiting up and booting up himself finally to get catapulted in the beyond into the, teleportation sky, what have you, and then he ends up getting launched from Mr. Phillips and Miss Crookshank into the abyss, and comes out, Peter, where?
Well, I would believe it would be the one of Jupiter's moons called Triton.
There you go, man.
And it's an ice moon that has liquid water under its crust, which makes it ideal for picking a chasm out, building a biodome there with a little sunroof that's opened for maybe a little magic atmosphere action implanted in there.
Something. Because who knows?
Or it's all fake and we're all blown away.
Either way, he ends up popping out of seemingly of nothing. It just kind of like, he just is like through some kind of ether, and he's on Jupiter, one of Jupiter's
and he's
moons.
just bouncing around on the moon, yeah.
And it's definitely Jupiter because we see the eye and everything. And well, there's
and our sun is way smaller, so it's further away.
there's there's a ridiculous amount of dead Mr. Phillips and Mrs. Crookshanks spread frozen
all
all
the
over
prior
the surface.
catapults and slingshots.
4 years worth, or however, whenever he decided to start launching them. And well, he gets to work, with some beautiful music playing in the background, and well, he ends up, spelling out an SOS, so to speak, but literally saying "Save me," with body parts broken and chucked around, specifically for a satellite to come by. And this is where I think it is in the real world. But this is where Pete mentioned the satellite earlier. Is it Lady True's satellite?
Yeah, I mean, it's got one hell of a multi-lens cap on it, just looking right at where Osmandius got catapulted out of. Mm-hmm. So it's looking directly on that spot. So it's...
Is she working with Dr. Manhattan, though? That's another question, too.
I would think so.
If she had the crazy technology to make an alternate bubble dimension on
She bought all his science, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Osmandius and his science background and Dr. Manhattan's science background is something that we will talk about in another show. But yeah, I think because she inherited or bought all that yes, indeed, I think maybe Blue God here helped build and place him there. Mm-hmm. But she was part of the whole taking over.
Yeah, I think so. We got to see how it all connects because it's definitely getting very interesting.
How much do you think Lori Blake knows about the Senator's full plans? Do you think she's in on the full plans? I
was wondering that too.
She is Spectre 2 after all, so she knows everything, right?
She knows a lot. And she's essentially still got the whole precinct bugged because she's already on to Angela as it is anyway. But we end up going back to the precinct after the Ozymandias scenes. And Angela finally getting the pills and learning what they are. But
I don't think Lori knows because she's sending everyone out to find this fake chapel. Is this just another Judd thing? Another fake bogus thing?
I think she knows a lot, but she probably doesn't know everything either. Hence why she is so stoked once she hears Sister Night essentially give herself up over the cactus mic. Because she's pretty much spills to Wade everything. Because I don't know if we mentioned this, but when Wade was talking to the Senator's like, we got to get Angela out of the picture. That's up to you. That's your job, Wade. You got to figure out how to get her out, or this is going to happen. So he basically has to turn on her
to save her and her family.
But that's where it kind of is does Lori know? Because he kind of, or did he just use Lori's suspicion to help him get Angela away for a little bit? Oh, Lori's on her. Let me just let her get caught by Lori, and then she'll be out of the picture. So it's a lot of there's so many possibilities and stuff, and it's all going to obviously come to a head, but it ends with Angela getting arrested, essentially, via the FBI, and...
because she said over the cactus, these pills are nostalgia, or she found out that they're nostalgia pills, and then she's like, yeah, it's my grandfather's memories. Mm-hmm. And that's not what got her arrested. What got her arrested was...
saying that she covered it up.
I covered up him killing Judd, but there's no way he could. He's over 100 and in a wheelchair.
Right. And then she downs
and
a
then
couple...
Blake comes out with hand cannon. What? Really? Is that necessary? Because Sister Night's so elusive and stuff.
I guess so. Yeah, she knows what her potential is.
She didn't have to bust through. She could have just said, okay, everybody.
Well, she's had her suspicions of her already anyway. So she was just waiting for a chance to pounce on her. But again, right when she gets pulled away, she downs a bunch of those. No, I don't think that was all of them.
Oh, wasn't it? A lot.
It was as much as she can get in her mouth at that moment.
Oh, okay.
Before that, she got pulled away and she swallowed a bunch. So. She definitely swallowed a bunch of her grandfather's memories, and it seems like that's going to happen next episode.
All of them on Sunday.
Yep. So let us know what you guys think. A lot to discuss here. A lot happened. A lot to unpack. And with 4 episodes left in the season, we are both very curious of how it's going to all tie up there.
Hey, even though Wade's guess of the Senator dropping a squid, he's asked him, are you going to drop another squid on us? He's like, no, got something totally new. So, like, what and
Oh,
where?
yeah.
Do you think the where is still Tulsa?
Yeah, Tulsa's the main focus here, especially
So,
with the Millennium
what
Clock being a
would...
big part of it.
So, since the, CX924 teleport window is the main thing they're working with, they obviously just want to move an object from here to here, and that's why they're using the basketball. They're trying to measure,
right.
like, if you turn it up to this level, then it'll go this
Right,
many feet
right.
away. And they're just doing the math. So I wonder what that could be.
I mean, it's just the same as what the Millennium Clock could be. I mean, it's so many different crazy theories of what that's doing and what their whole plan is in 3 days of when they said that was going to be. So
That Senator and Wade scene was very revealing, but the biggest reveal of reveals there was the senator's supposed timeline when he discovered the truth. It was 2 weeks after becoming the senator of Oklahoma. He got passed up for the lead intelligence committee and as well as the judiciary committee, but he ended up with the appropriations committee, which is how to spend the government project money and stuff. It's a very powerful position, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the standing committee showed him the Ozzy to the Rob, I call it the Ozzy to Robbie film. It was Ozymandias to Robert Redford video. 2 years. So he was 2 years of this knowledge and to work on whatever idea he's got going on here. But because he said, it took me 2 years to make a pirate copy of this before he popped it in.
right.
So as head of the committee, he admitted that him and Judd, deceased Judd, took over the 7th Cavalry and split it in half, and they were in charge of their own units, trying to play everything out. I don't even know how much of that I believe, though.
Yeah, who knows? That's what I'm saying. At this point, there's so many different possibilities we can end up going with both sides. Because again, I don't think the senator's 7th Cavalry. He has similar knowledge. If anything, Judd was leading him more than.
We'll probably find out more about that next episode with the whole memories thing, but don't you think with Angela's memory thing?
Especially since we're gonna see her. It seemed like we're gonna see her grandfather as a police officer in New York, which is I'm curious if that was any time around either the psychic blast or before. During like the Minutemen and stuff.
Did you notice that when Ozymandias was doing his film and they zoomed in and they cut to him being catapulted, the catapulted scene, the last thing he said to President Redford was, "For the next 3 hours, I'll indulge you in how we're going to work together as partners," or whatever. And I'm like, oh, and it cut. I'm like, oh man, like I wonder if we're going to hear anything more about that.
Well, I think it was mainly. Did he actually say how we're gonna work as partners, or was it him saying
partners side by
was
side?
it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Goes,
I thought
we
it
have
was,
to build trust with each other. In the next 3 hours, I'll give you my plan.
That's where I think that all he did there was he was just explaining the squid plan more to him. You know what I'm saying? He was gonna like show him the squid, because at that point, think about making a video like that, Pete. Like if you made a video saying it was all of a hoax, he can just be like, the dude recorded it fucking yesterday and just sent it to me today. He didn't. So what he had to do was literally probably walk around with the camera showing him the squid and everything, being like, nope, this is fucking real. Look how big this thing is. Look, it has a fucking big old beak, and it's got a giant brain and one eyeball, and it's like, its tentacles reach for like 3 miles.
And they're like, yep, that's the one.
Yeah. So
where do you think he launched it from? Just somewhere in Great Britain and it plopped out over Manhattan?
No, remember, it was on the island.
Island.
Yeah, they did the whole... he had all those scientists and artists there designing it, and then somehow they had one of those teleporters there, and they teleported it from there to the, to Manhattan there, and yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. We got pecker gnats in here from another dimension.
Must be one of those.
There's a P-Day, B-Day for you.
Must be one of those CX924 teleport board windows. Came right through that thing.
Right. Pecker gnats from another dimension. That's a P-Day, B-Day name there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. Like we said, comment down below. Let's get this discussion going. We got a lot to talk about. And we'll see you guys next week for the review of episode 6. Peace out, guys.
Enjoy the enjoyment, everybody.